We're going to give it just a second and allow everyone some time to roll in before we get started here. So we'll give it just one more minute really quickly. Well, not a minute, but all right. Hello and welcome to today's Wyoming Community Navigator Program webinar. We're glad that you've joined us today. My name is Mandy Bailey and I'm the Advising and Education Director for the Wyoming Community Navigator Program. I'm going to be your facilitator today. I'll be working behind the scenes, so if we have any technical difficulties, I will approach them as best I can and resolve them as quickly as I can. Just to give you a little bit of information, the Wyoming Community Navigator Program is a pilot program and it is funded through the U.S. Small Business Administration. We utilize the Wyoming Entrepreneurial Support Network to reduce barriers that all small businesses often face, including those owned by groups such as veterans, women, and those from rural communities and communities of color. We use a hub and spoke model to pursue our goals. We're working with all of those partner organizations, and through our collective efforts of the hub and spokes provide training, access to capital, and access to other resources to help small business owners be the driving force behind Wyoming's economic recovery and to also build resiliency. So today we are going to have successful hospitality addressing 5 key challenges in restaurants, and that is going to be with Deegan Williams. And we are so thankful to have Deegan with us today. I'll give you a brief background, and I'm sure she'll give you a little bit more information. But Deegan thrives in the intersection of community, food, and systems and loves to work with making them into a cohesive whole, greater than the sum of their parts. Deegan is a distinguished chef. She's worked in France and in California, and she also has an MBA from Mills College. So we are so thankful to have Deegan with us today. She's going to share a lot of insight with us, not only today, but also Thursday. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Deegan.
Still with the mute button, huh? You'd think I was brand new at this Zoom thing. Hi, thank you so much, Mandy and Nick. I'm grateful to be here with you guys. Welcome everybody else. I'm really excited. I love this content. This is a brand new seminar for me that I've created specifically for you guys. And so I'm excited to be here and share this with you and learn along the way with you. This is really a seminar for everybody else, not me. So now that I've worked on it and written it, I want to make sure that your needs are getting met. This is going to be a welcoming, turn on your screens if you want, if you're comfortable. I'm happy to see your faces. Feel free to jump into the chat. Mandy and Nick can help with that. Or get interactive, raise your hand, because I'm going to ask some questions. So, and when you see me looking away, I'm either taking notes or looking at a second screen, but I am right here with you guys. Everything else is shut down. So for the next 90 minutes, it's just us. So really what we're looking at today is successful hospitality. And underneath that are the 5 key challenges that help us get to successful hospitality. We were just talking before we started the seminar, the recording that, we're not really interested in talking about challenges. We're interested in talking about success in the hospitality industry. And one of the ways that we can do that is by examining the 5, key things that are in the way and see how we can do that, especially right now. And this is just a reminder of why we are in this industry, is to create and deliver delicious food and hospitality and things that make people feel welcome. Even if this isn't your style, there's something endearing about it, that we share baked goods, even if they're vegan and gluten-free. My name is Deegan Williams. I'm a chef by trade, an MBA, and the founder of Culinary Business Strategy. I always find it very awkward to look at my own picture, so we're going to get rid of that really quickly. I want to share a little bit of my background, not to be preachy or to sell, but to just share with you like why I believe that I'm qualified to help lead this seminar and help navigate your businesses to success. I'm a classically trained chef. I was spent 8 years in France going to cooking school and apprenticeship. I've been a food business consultant. So I was a chef for 25 years, overlapping some. I've been a food business consultant for about 15 years. I was an SBDC advisor for 9 of those years. So I overlapped my private practice and the SBDC advising. I learned a ton through that. And so I know the SBDC system. I believe in it because part of the mission and vision of my business is a lot has been given to me. So I want to be sure that I am available to help others and give back. And above all, my professional mission and vision in life at this point is about creative, practical, measurable food business solutions. In other words, I help food and beverage businesses realize the next level of success. Because when I was classically trained, I knew how to slice and dice and pull sugar and work an 18-burner saute station on a Saturday night, but I didn't know the first thing about business. And at the age of 24, I found myself at the helm of a fine dining restaurant with 27-person kitchen staff. I was the only female. I was the youngest person. I was drinking from the fire hose, you guys. Like, I was just in trouble. And the only thing that saved me is that I had a whole bunch of grit and determination, probably more than was reasonable. But that was kind of like my super skill and my defense mechanism of like, just work harder and we'll see how it works out. And because of that, I made every mistake on the planet. I believe every single one that a chef could make. I have some embarrassing ones, but they also have been really helpful in helping other people learn. So I couldn't count past, 10 without taking off my shoes and socks. I did not do well. I wasn't paying attention in high school. And so anything that had to do with math or numbers in the hospitality industry scared the bejeebas out of me. And I think it's interesting that now most of the work that I do is actually financial because that's what most food and beverage business owners need. And now I kind of specialize in numbers and I love numbers. They don't scare me anymore. So if by chance they happen to scare you, I would love to hear about it. Let's talk about it. I'd love to break it down, help you work with it. There's nothing in the hospitality industry that is sophisticated math. The idea is sophisticated and scary, but the practical, tangible, like application is really addition and subtraction, multiplication and division, nothing fancy. And I can break down formulas into word problems or word problems into formulas for you, no problem. So if there's something that like doesn't make sense about your money, let's talk about it in this next 90 minutes. Or again, especially specifically on Thursday. I work in 4 predominant areas with food and beverage business owners, and that is operational efficiency, culinary excellence, branded marketing, and financial analysis. Most food and beverage business owners are really, really good at operations and they make great food. And then the other stuff is like work hard and pray because we're so busy, right? I know this industry. I was in it. I'm still in it. So it's not like anybody's doing something wrong, but I know that when I was a chef and I didn't have a business education or business resources or business support, I thought I was especially dumb, which is a funny little assumption, but we all make that. Like, if we don't know something, we can either like feel shame or embarrassment or fear or something like that. And kind of my job is to I want to be like the chef whisperer and be like, you're not dumb. You don't need to be afraid. It's okay. So almost enough about me. I build courses. For the SBDC, I created something called the Food Business Entrepreneurial Training Academy. It's a 10-part series. It's a both 101 and a 201 level, which is basically soup to nuts. Either I want to start a business or I'm already in business and I want it to get better. How do I do it? And then privately, I have 2 courses called Beyond the Plate and Food Financials. Again, I'm not interested in selling them from this position. I just want to let you know that like that's where I have spent a lot of my time and effort, and those are the things that interest me. So this workshop is for you. If you are in the hospitality industry and realize that the last 3 years were a roller coaster. If you didn't realize they're a roller coaster, I'm glad you had a good nap because it's been a roller coaster. You want to get into the hospitality industry in a new way, and you maybe want some help navigating it. Like maybe you're rebuilding your business after the last 3 years, or you're looking forward to like, now what do I do? Or you might be wanting to get into it and thinking, is this a good time or a really, really bad time? The answer is yes, it is a good time and it is a bad time, and it's fine. It always is. We can navigate around it. And the third way is if you want to navigate to profitability rather than working hard. If you want to trade in some working hard and get to profitability. And the reason why I bring that up is because it is so deeply ingrained in our industry, right? Yeah, just work hard and pray. And that's nice. If you want to work hard and you want to pray, that's great. But there's so much more to it. We don't have to like work hard. Working hard is not the only tool that we have at our disposal in order to get to profitability. And for a long time, I really thought it was. It is definitely the industry norm or the cultural norm. And so I want to be careful that, I want to address that and say, that's not the only tool we have. But enough about me. Let's talk about you. What do you want? What do you need out of this session? Why are you here? How can I help you? What challenges are you facing? What would make your life better? What compelled you to come spend 90 minutes with us? And what do you want out of this? How can I help you? And that's where I'm just going to specifically say, unmute and talk. DP, would you like to share? Or Leah, would you like to share? Hi, Leah. Are you raising your hand because you can't unmute yourself?
No, I just wanted to make sure we were ready.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Hi.
Hello, I am Leah Burback. I currently own Heirloom and Native, which is focusing on Wyoming chef-crafted foods. Right now, it is just me and temporary event staff. So I'm looking for tools and resources to make it so that it can be more than just me, and I can share this vision with other people and bring a little bit more culinary expertise to the Wyoming scene.
There's amazing natural resources in Wyoming. So you're in great shape. Leah, help me understand, are you a catering company or are you like artisan food products?
Currently, I do prepared foods and special event catering. And so I'm looking for tools to how to move forward and become profitable without working myself to death. Because I've been in fine dining and fine catering for 15 years, and I've seen the not pretty side of that.
You've seen death or you've seen close to it. Yeah. So prepared foods meaning meals delivered to my home?
Yes, I do
Great.
specific custom meals for families or busy professionals, and work with allergies, new or old, and people who need to learn how to eat better within that restriction.
Yeah, I love this concept. There are so many different ways that you can go to get to success, and that's great. And you have seen the ugly side of working hard. There's a picture of me on my 29th, and it wasn't my 29th birthday. There's a different story about my 29th birthday in this industry, but I was 29 years old and it was New Year's Eve. And it was at the end of New Year's Eve service. And there was a picture of me sitting on the counter at 2:00 in the morning. I was 29 years old and I still have the picture, and I look at it and I looked older than I look now. Like I just look like, I looked like somebody who had been doing drugs for 25 years straight or something. It was just, there was this look. And I remember I was like hollow, and because I had run from, Thanksgiving to New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. And I just remember thinking, don't ever forget this moment. Like I just like a shell of a human being. So I understand what you're saying about that. And I would love to help you build a business in these next 2 seminars about how you can do that without just, there's hard work involved, but you don't want to, if you're not well, you're not going to make great food. And you also are not going to have such a great life. And hospitality is about sharing that. So that's great. Thank you so much for sharing. Please feel free to raise your hand or, jump in when you need to, if you need clarification or something, because I will definitely, I have slides, but this isn't scripted, and I will, go in your direction and say, Leah, this is something that you can use. So please feel free to jump in because this is for you. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you want me to know off the bat?
I think something I'm working on right now is financials. I've been in business school before. I wanted to be a chemical engineer. And so I'm usually pretty comfortable with numbers and fighting with bookkeeping software that shall not be named. And currently reaching out and trying to be more comfortable with finding help and resources rather than thinking I should do it all by myself.
So is the issue the software that shall not be named, or is it about adapting financials to the hospitality industry?
Probably a little bit of both. The software is so broad in its spectrum that it's causing a lot of issues when I'm trying to just get it set up and make it so that it will be easier to function on a monthly basis. And
so you mean chart of accounts and stuff like that?
yeah.
Oh, I can help you with the latter. I can't change the former.
That's fair.
But I can give you, actually, I have some resources. There are people out there that do seminars on it. I can get you some resources to do it, because let's just say you're not the first person you are the most polite person about it, but you're not the first person to share this issue with me. I can help you with the latter. And I think once you have the latter and you're more comfortable with, it well, then you're going to be able to say, I need you to do this. And there are support people out there for it. I'm just not one of them. I mean, I do help my clients with it, but it's not what's on my business card. So I can help some, but I wouldn't say I'm an expert intentionally. It's like shucking oysters, right? When I was in cooking school, everyone was like, don't ever learn how to shuck oysters because you'll be stuck shucking oysters for the rest of your life. And I mean, I can shuck an oyster, but I'm certainly not a professional. So thank you so much for helping with that. Your financials, I would love for you to walk away by the end of this week and have your financials set up. I think we can do that. I would love to do that. Please feel free to send me an email. I'll share contact information, or you can send it through Mandy. I would love to see your menu, and then that way I can think about it a little bit more, or an idea of a menu. DP, would you like to share anything? And Mandy and Nick, you guys are obviously feel free to jump in if there's questions that you're like, I think this might be important.
Absolutely.
Yep, will do.
Okay, I'm going to move forward because we can only look at this slide for so long before you guys fall asleep. So what we're going to cover today: industry specific challenges that are happening right now, right? So key elements for long-term success. Again, what we really care about is long-term success and those key elements more so than the challenges, but we're going to get there by going through the challenges. Hiring, staff retention, and team building, increasing and stabilizing sales, inflation and supply chain management, and customer experience. Those 5 areas, I believe, are the things that are going to most impact long-term success. I have gone back and forth so many times about the order of which is most important. I am known to say, if you don't know it, remember anything else, or this is the most important thing. But the reality of the matter is, I'm going to say that about each and every one. Probably customer experience is the most important thing, but you only get to customer experience by the other 4. So then I would say top line sales, right? I'll go back and forth, but basically they're all really important. So that's what we're going to cover today. Let's take a quick moment and look at the state of the industry. I'm not going to spend a ton of time here, but I definitely want to share like this, so that kind of set the stage. So the pandemic fundamentally shifted the foundation of our industry, right? In all fairness, that foundation was ready to go anyway. It was kind of like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. It had some duct tape and some baling wire and some chewing gum to kind of keep it all together. And it was slowly cracking and leaning over. And we all knew it, But we only had one model. And so everybody was trying to like shove into this one model. And that's kind of like trying to wear your shoes from first grade when you're in fifth grade. Like, it's just not gonna work. It's not that they're a little bit tight. It's just like your feet don't fit anymore. And so some people, we built this model and we had these tiny little shoes that we just kind of busted out of the seams on and we didn't move. The pandemic had some really horrendous things happen, for sure. And now let's look at some good things that happened as part of the pandemic, which is that it broke that model. And now we are all on the same page of like, we don't have to do this anymore. We don't have to have that one model. So it kind of blew it apart, or it cracked. And now we have many different business models, which is great. So we used to have one problem. Now we have many problems, but you don't have to be, like Leah, you were talking about prepared foods and catering. You don't have to try and put yourself into the exact same business model or financial model that every restaurant, cafe, and Jack in the Box in the country used to try and be exactly the same, because those are many different types of businesses. So let's build one that is specific to you. And now that's open and accessible. So now we're going to update, right? The business model, the financial model, the systems and tools, and we're going to build it from within the industry. Because it used to, again, we had this external model. It used to be like the first 3 rules of the hospitality industry were location, location, and location. I believe that for a long time, and it's simply no longer true. We are a driving culture. We will drive, right? There's other things that can happen. Experience is the #1 rule of the hospitality industry at this point, as far as I'm concerned, right? You can have great food, but if people don't feel good about themselves, they're not coming back. In the beginning of the pandemic really put that into place. Like when we didn't see anybody for 2 months, and then finally we were able to like go do some curbside pickup and drive, even see people that would put food in the back of our car from 8 feet away. It was like, hello, human. It was so nice to see somebody that you didn't know and you hadn't been with for 23 and a half hours a day. One of the things that came with it is that learning how to shift into that. We also got to vote with our checkbooks in a really direct way. We've always voted with our checkbooks, but we got to really see that we got to decide who we wanted to vote with, who got to stay in business and who didn't. It was a way of engaging hospitality in a new way that we hadn't felt in a couple of decades. It also shifted the financial model in several ways, but that's where we are. So the pandemic shifted. It's not all bad. I guess I want to say is that it shifted some things and it opened up some things. And let's capitalize on the things that are good, because it was a tough couple of years. So we all know what happened in 2020 and 2021. And then in 2022, we had these headwinds and we're like, we're okay, we're not okay, what's happening? In 2023, we seem to be having less headwinds, but we have some like wind coming from the side from time to time, and it's unpredictable. And it's different. We're no longer all in the exact same boat. We're now in a different way of looking at, some people. I have a client who has sales that are almost back to pre-pandemic numbers, but all of his prices, all of his costs have increased. So it's no longer a good idea. Like it's no longer, things aren't working out well. Now we need to shift and adjust. Doesn't mean it's bad. It means we need to shift and adjust. That's like my big thing. We have projected sales of $997 billion this year. And that was a big jump for a year-over-year jump. And here's what's been happening since the 1950s when we started tracking it, right? 25% of the disposable dollar was spent in restaurants. And in 2019, it was up to 51%, right? So it had been slowly marching this way. Well, in 2022, it all shifted back, right? Or not all, but a good chunk of it shifted back because you simply couldn't spend your money outside of the house. But in 2023, we're like, I can not only vote with my checkbook, but I can go on a miniature vacation. Like I can go out and I have happy hour dates with my friends now in ways that I didn't have it before. Like we go out for a miniature vacation and we like meet each other for happy hour. or stuff like that, right? We have in ways that I hadn't been doing. It wasn't my lifestyle to go to happy hour. Now there is that moment. Or if we go, it's more of an experience. It's more poignant because honestly, we felt it taken away for a moment. So here's the thing. Consumers are also, they really want to go out, like I just said, and have like fun dates or have dates. But then also we have people are unsure, like, are we going into a recession? And prices seem to keep going up. And I'm not sure it makes sense that prices are going up, but I think they've gone up again. I don't know. What do you think? And so it's all a little bit disorienting. And so we all kind of want to run out and party and have fun because yay, we can. But then there's also this pause that's happening in 2023. So that's the part that we want to be really careful about, right? And we want to pay attention to. So that whole foundation that I was talking about that was cracked and leaning Tower of Pisa and was leaning and stuff like that, that had duct tape and baling wire, that foundation got blown up. And now the industry in large part really feels like it's a rope bridge. That's a perfectly safe bridge, but it's no longer where we can believe like the ground is running. The ground is like solid and unmovable. While this bridge is perfectly safe, it's got some of this, and that's what the hospitality industry has right now. I realize in Wyoming, you guys probably don't have earthquakes in the same way that I grew up with earthquakes in California. And we always thought they were cool and fun as a kid until I experienced what we call the big one in my lifetime, the big one. And from October 17th, 1989 on, I have never thought that an earthquake was fun or cool since then, because I remember standing in a walk-in, in a kitchen, and seeing the shelves go like this, in ways that they were hard fixed and walls were moving in ways that you were like, oh. So I just want to put up this analogy of like, it looks like this, it's a new thing because we're rebuilding many different models. Again, you no longer have to shove into a model that doesn't work for you, but it feels a little weird. In fact, it feels so weird, it probably feels like this. And you look at it and you're like, oh, I'm not walking on that thing. I could die. I'm going down, right? Well, clearly people have been walking on it, but it probably doesn't feel safe. I don't know that I would recommend walking on this particular one myself either, but you get the idea. So why all of this matters? Sales are currently projected to be $997 billion. And in 2023, there was 863. We typically don't have a jump in 3 years of that much, right? But everything changed. We have over 1 million locations, 15 million employees. There's still new job creations that are happening. That's, it's about 10 to 12% of our workforce. It's a big deal. The hospitality industry is really important. But what we really care about is that most restaurant managers started out at entry level. Restaurant owners started out in entry level positions. And most restaurants have fewer than 50 employees. This is really key. Like Leo was saying, like, how do I need some help. And at the same time, I can't go to the poorhouse, like not getting help. Like, how do you have help and move forward? And most restaurants don't have enough room to have, like, with less than 50 employees, we can't have like, here's the HR department, here's the marketing department, here's the training department. That's called Deegan, Mandy, and so, right? Like we have, and each one of us wears 3 or 4 hats. And most restaurants, 7 out of 10 restaurants are single unit operations, meaning we're not swapping, like we don't have some big corporate umbrella that's helping us navigate the two. So what does all this mean? It means that most restaurants are trained in restaurant food service, but not in business, right? A lot of people have industry experience, not business experience. And the restaurant industry currently has a profit margin somewhere between 5 and 15%. And here's the thing that you're going to hear me anytime that you spend with me, you're going to hear say over and over again, because I will stump speech on this as long as I have breath in my body. There's a cultural norm that says we wring our hands and we say it's a really tough margin. It's a really tough industry. It's hard to make your margins. It's hard to make ends meet. It's just so tough. And that serves no purpose about how hard it is. It might be hard, but like, do you want to be in another industry? Go. I don't want to be in another industry. So my job is to figure out how I'm going to make this one work. And, there's a national grocery, I think it's national, a huge grocery store chain, right, called Safeway. And do you guys have Safeway?
Yes, we do.
Great. So I'm not talking about something crazy. Okay, so Safeway nationally has a 2.5% profit margin, and that's a good year. They're happy with it. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad, right? Everything changes. The fanciest restaurant in San Francisco has a 58% food cost, and McDonald's and Burger King are all sitting around 10 to 12%, but they have a much higher marketing cost, right? So things change and move all over the place. Just because there's a profit margin that's 10 to 15%, that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It's got to be a positive number. That's important, but we're going to look at that. That's different. Like the IRS and your reality can be two different things. You can take a loss and still be profitable without being a liar. So we want to look at that as well. But a low profit margin is not, it's not going to help us to stand on that and be like, it's really hard to make a living. So fewer than 50 employees. And like I said, that means there's not enough room for people to have different department heads. The single unit operations means that we have nobody else. I'm stuck in this world. I remember the first time I was a chef at this fine dining restaurant up in the north coast of California. After about a year and a half, I went out and met people for a drink after work one night, and somebody said to me, "You're Deegan Deegan?" And I was like, "Well, no, actually I'm Deegan Williams, but what do you mean?" And they were shocked that they were like, or they acted like they were shocked towards me, and they're like, "I've heard about you, but I've never seen you." And it was because I had spent a year and a half in that same restaurant. I had never gone out in a very small town of like 250 people. It was an exclusive tourist town that, but those that lived there, we were about 250 people, and I hadn't met most of the other chefs because I was completely consumed in my own operation. We need to not be consumed in our own operations. And like I said, the restaurant culture, that's the thing that I always talk about, of just like how hard it is. Yeah, it's hard. I'm not going to say it's not, but let's find a way around it. So does any of this sound familiar, right? You work hard and hope. We need strategies. Sometimes feels like we're driving in the fog. And then there's this roller coaster of not knowing what's coming next. And so we kind of like scramble and hold on. And I know for me, especially early on, before I knew how to cook, I didn't know how to motivate people. I didn't know how to lead people. And I didn't know how to be a business person. I made so many mistakes, you guys. And from that, I just got this place of like, I was so focused on the problem that I became tense as a human being. And that, because I don't know what's going on, right? And that makes sense. Nobody's relaxed when they're like, woo, careening into disaster. But there's also a way that we can have some strategies and systems in place so that we can like check and say, okay, this is okay. I can calm down now. Is there anything else? Any other problem that I am not seeing that you guys want to mention? Anybody wants to mention? I'm not that smart, you guys. I didn't come up with every problem on the planet. Nothing? Hey. What if it were easier and better? And then what would easier and better look like for you? I'm guessing that that's going to be a strategy of knowing where things are. And it's just not this constant like hamster on a hamster wheel, right? It's knowing where your problems are, knowing where your solutions are so that you can measure them. It's one of the things I also stand on, like, I will stump speech on this till the cows come home, which is knowing one's break even means that you also know where your profitability is. And that's a really key and important thing to do. So what if we measured that? So my promise to you is that I can give you validation, education, tools, and support. Validation of like the challenges that you have are real. and some education on some alternatives around it, some tools to get you there. And really what I really believe in is strategy. The name of my company is Culinary Business Strategy, and it's one of the biggest mistakes I've ever made in my life, because it's a really bad name for several reasons for a company, but it's also really straightforward, and it's about, which is part of who I am and what my company is being really straightforward. It's culinary, business, and strategy, and it's exactly what we do. I thrive at the intersection of hospitality, food, people, and community. And in order to do that, we have to have strategy rather than just working hard, right? Like that gets us working hard. And I feel like I invented that concept. So I feel like I'm legitimate in saying, I can say that just working hard is not going to get us there. Or it gets us there somewhat, but like we have this myth, right? It always comes to mind of like Steve Jobs walking out on stage and pulling out the iPod Nano out of his coin pocket of his like classic Levi's, of like, he's just so gifted and so brilliant that he's like, oh, by the way, this whole thing I made up. And meanwhile, there's like thousands of people behind him and thousands of lawsuits, right? And to keep all the secrecy down, to have that one moment of the surprise and element of like, oh, I just pulled this whole thing out of my pocket that everybody and their brother wants to buy. It's a great moment, but we have that infused in our culture everywhere we go. So let's demystify that. Let's, pull back. Here's the deal. The solutions are in the problems, and the solutions are always in the problem. And that's the good news. Since we know where our problems are, we can look at our solutions, right? Being that the solutions are in the problems, and we don't have to really look further. And it's really common to be like, here's this, therefore it might be that. One of the common things that I hear all the time is people talking about, a restaurant or a food and beverage business has been open for 3 or 4 years. And then people are like, people just don't know about us. And that's why we've never gotten busy. And I'd be like, it's a small town of 50,000 people, or even San Francisco, or, New York is obviously bigger than San Francisco, but like, even in a large town, in a large city, people know who you are. After 4 years, people have had the opportunity to know who you are. So it's important. We don't need to look for solutions beyond the problems. Just know that the solution's there. So, like I said, I would move these 5 things around, and here's one example of that. I believe that the first thing that we need to do is increase and stabilize sales. Just this morning on a restaurant group on Facebook, I heard somebody talk about, I read about that they have customers that are getting up and walking out because they're waiting so long for the servers to get there. And they don't feel like they can hire more servers because it's a small restaurant. And so they can only have one server. And now they have 2 servers, but they're taking on too many tables because they're trying to get to the tips, because the tips aren't good because they're so busy rushing. And I was just like, because it's so many things happening at once that might make my head spin. But there's an opportunity, right? Like, the problem is customers are getting up and walking out. What do they need to not get up and walk out? And she flat out said, because they're waiting too long. Okay, then let's make sure they're not waiting too long. Sometimes it's really simple, and how can we make sure that they're not waiting too long? One of my favorite tactics for, restaurant breakfast places that there's, because in every town, there's that one restaurant, at least one restaurant that has people waiting in line to get to breakfast, right? Or brunch on weekends. Walk out there with a pot of coffee and a bunch of coffee cups. Even if you don't track every single one of them, when you show up to your table and you've had coffee, it makes you feel good, makes you feel cared for. That's the part about the customer experience. And then you charge them the $2 or $4 or whatever it is for that cup of coffee. But it makes people feel welcome. That's how you can distract them from waiting for so long. Or, what is it, Here are your menus. Here's some water. Can't wait to see. I'll be back in a minute. It's going to be a minute. I know you guys are really hungry. So are the next 25 people ahead of you, but I'm going to be with you just as soon as I can. If you say something like that, it's going to make people feel endeared and connected to you. Okay. So the solutions are in the problem. We want to increase and stabilize sales. Increasing sales with a new with the fact that we don't have one business model anymore, we have many business models. We have an opportunity to get into their home by selling that hot sauce. Or Leah, you have an opportunity to be in their home because you're selling prepared meals, which is great. We want to make sure that there's some form of your visual branding that is in their home, because we bond with brands in the home so much more than we do outside of home, right? If I look across the floor and I see Nikes in my house, that's pretty exciting because it's something that's like part of me. And pay attention to the times when people say, this is my Pepsi, my Diet Coke, my donuts, my Doritos, right? Like people talk about, especially with soda, they talk about my Pepsi or my Coke, and it's always fascinating because it's actually not theirs. I mean, they bought that can of it, absolutely, but they think that Pepsi is part of who they are. It's part of their identity. You want to help people have your food and beverage business be part of their identity. And it's one of the ways that you can increase and stabilize sales. And when I say increase sales, I'm talking about kind of old school. Hi, can I get you started with some drinks or an appetizer? And you finish the meal with, can I get you dessert? How can we do that is specific and customized for your business and not done in a, it's done in a different way, right? And that's going to help stabilize because you can sell hot sauce or barbecue sauce or a cinnamon roll for tomorrow morning. I know restaurants that do that with dinner. You sell them a cinnamon roll for tomorrow morning's breakfast. Who doesn't love that? And you've had a good meal and you're out with friends and you're feeling great. And you're like, can I add on a cinnamon roll for tomorrow morning's breakfast? You're like, yeah, I just spent $100. What's 5 more? Who cares? Right? Because you're in this kind of party mode. So stabilizing sales. Hiring, we're going to get into that because it's important. And then staff retention and building, inflation and supply chain management, and customers. Above all, just go back to the problem to look for the solution. So the pandemic changed everything. We're going to go back to the studs. We're going to strip it back down, but the framework remains the same, right? You guys have heard me say this over and over at this point. The old model, the same model, the classic traditional model that I wish this didn't exist. I would like to take red pen and like put it out, but I put it up so that we can actually look at it. The traditional financial model was 30, 30, 30, 10. And then rents started going up before the pandemic. Now what do you do? And when I say fixed cost, I do not mean 30% in rent. I mean 6 to 10% in rent, and everything else gets wrapped in there. And then you have food costs or labor started getting harder to get. And now you have catering companies saying, you know, we have to pay $35 an hour because that's the going rate for catering staff. You don't actually have to do what anybody else is doing. You can do it differently. And there's lots of solutions to not do it. And then cost of goods sold, right? Your food cost and your beverage cost, that is going through the roof at the moment. And everybody is freaking out about it. I have a restaurant that had pasture raised eggs and they were 90 cents a pop. And for a breakfast place, you're like, whoa, how do we make sense of that? So again, this whole model doesn't matter. What matters about your food cost and your labor cost is that it adds up to where you want it to be. That's important, that you have a model that you can measure against. You have a model that we can know what your break even is. If you know what your break even is, your chances of achieving it are far, far greater. And that you have a model that is around 100. Right? The bottom line is top line sales dictate the bottom line profit. So we want to have a financial model. I have a client that has, before the pandemic, right before the pandemic, they came to me and they were like, we want to change our financial model. We want you to help us get there. And I was like, okay, great. Let's do that. I love that kind of stuff. And they're like, we want to have labor costs to everybody that works here, from the head chef to the COO to the dishwasher. Everybody has paid vacation, medical, dental, vision for them and their family. That's key. And I was like, ooh la la fifi. How are we going to make that happen? And they're like, we're cooperative. This is what's important to us. This is how it's going to work. And everybody is mad that they're not making a lot of money. So people were making like $19 to $24 an hour if they were like hourly employees. and I'm sure that sounds like a lot for another state other than the Bay Area, and everybody was complaining that it wasn't much. But they were all getting like medical and dental and vision for them and their entire family. And people were losing sight of it. And it meant that their labor cost was about 46%. Tricky, right? Because with 46% of every dollar coming in going to labor, I was like, wow, we're going to have to change some stuff around. But we built it. And the only thing that matters is that your numbers or your percentages are consistent in relation to yourself. They matter in relation to yourself and they're consistent. I would far prefer that over having like a picture perfect 30, 30, 30, 10. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions about why I'm bucking this trend and how it can apply to your business? Okay. Leah, you can make this work for your business because your fixed costs are and your cost of goods sold are much more controllable than they are for a restaurant. And in a restaurant, I find a way to make them controllable as well. But you can know what you're going to have. It's not like people are walking in and ordering off the menu, right? So there's that right there. Above all, you want to have a model that is fixed cost, labor cost, COGS, and profit. But these numbers over here don't have to be exactly the same. They have to be consistent. They have to be for you.
So Deegan, going back to that slide, are there any numbers that are unreasonable for those specific categories?
Yeah, I thought 46% was unreasonable. I mean, it made my head spin, right?
Mhm.
But they owned the building, and so their rent was down to like 2%. And so it was fine. They didn't need to have a profit because they were actually a nonprofit or not for profit. No, the only thing that is unreasonable is what doesn't work. And especially it's hard to say that because especially there's the model of, or the idea of like everything is different. I was in Las Cruces, New Mexico, working like a 4-day intensive last year. And there was a company that did prepared foods. And they were doing better than most restaurants in that town. Like they had higher sales than most restaurants in that town. And their labor cost was really high, again, for a different reason than the cooperative. The cooperative, had 25 people in the kitchen all the time, no matter what, whether they were busy or slow. But this company was growing all the time. And because they were growing, it meant that labor costs were kind of fluctuating and all over the place. That was a concern to me. And generally speaking, what would be unreasonable? It's a great question, Mandy. What would be unreasonable or unacceptable to me would be if you start out with your rent being more than 10%. Because we'll get into it in a little bit more, but the only thing that you can change once you're in business and once your financial model is set, you can't go back into your SBA loan or to your landlord or to your mortgage broker and be like, you know what, hey guys, we've just decided this, rent is just too expensive. We're going to bring it down. You can't control that. You can't go back to your insurance or your workers' comp or whatever it is and change it overnight, but you can change your cost of goods sold and your labor. Those are the two things that you can control once you're in business. So I think it's really important to not have fixed costs or what I call manufacturing overhead, what it costs you to be in business on a regular basis or on a monthly basis. Make sure that that number is not like sinking you on the second day of the month, every month, no matter what, and there's no way out of it. That's what will make it unreasonable. And I see that fairly often. People are like, yeah, but it was the only place I could get. And I'm like, that's great. You have 30 seats and you have a financial model that requires 90 seats. That's just not a work harder kind of situation. That is this model isn't going to work. Yeah. So there's not any fixed thing that is unreasonable, but there are certainly specific unreasonable things or unacceptable things.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure. So the pandemic didn't change everything, right? The hospitality industry, it highlighted two key things are really important: details and people feeling cared for. That's what hospitality is about, is like, I'm paying attention to your needs in a detailed way that you, and then through that you feel cared for. How we go about doing that. I have a client, a family of clients, they had this really successful food truck. They made delicious Mexican food. And it was really successful for like 20 years. And so they decided to open a brick and mortar. And the brick and mortar, it opened February 2020. And two, it was on the other side of town. And there were some other things that were different. And the brick and mortar restaurant kind of just sunk like a rock. The first thing to look at is people weren't going out into restaurants. A food truck was much more attractive. And thirdly, the culture of that food truck, right? It was the same guy. It was a husband and wife team, and their kids were in the background, and the husband was in the window. And every time he came up, he was like, "Hey, Mandy, how you doing? How are the kids? What's going on? What are you doing?" Like, he knew, you want your same order, you guys getting the same thing. There was a sense of hospitality and being cared for. I think that they could have served like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and called it Mexican food, and people would have come back, because you felt so good seeing him. And you couldn't feel that during the pandemic in a restaurant. And so it sank, and they had to find a way to get that back. And they were upset. They thought it was something else, but just remember that the hospitality industry is people feel cared for. And even if you can't give them what they want, I don't believe in this idea that like the customer is always right. But I do believe that it's our job to care for them. That is what we do in this industry. And so sometimes I can say, you're not going to get what you want, but I'm going to make you feel happy about it. Right? We want to have some kind of thing like that. So the 5 R's. Mandy, I want to check in with you. How are we doing on time?
We are at 11:52, so we have just over 30 minutes.
Great. Watch this. So the 5 R's is something that I came up with a long time ago. I didn't think it was very fancy or very important, and it is used. It has been proven to be a really important model over and over again. I invite you to take it, steal it, adopt it, make it your own, because that's what it's for. And the 5 R's is, one time a colleague said to me, "What's the secret to the hospitality industry?" And I said, "It's not that difficult." And I don't mean to, it is difficult. It's a hard industry, but the 5 R's are selling the right product at the right time, at the right place, to the right people in the right time. And more importantly than what those 5 R's are, is because the 6th thing is that you're creating an experience from those things, right? And so the most important thing of the 5 R's is that they are aligned. You're selling the right product at the right place, at the right time, to the right person, and the right thing. I just always mess it up when I'm doing it verbally live. Is the alignment, right? You can't sell a McDonald's hamburger to somebody that's looking for a bespoke, hand harvested, we made the bun in-house kind of thing place. Same thing with, people always say, I often use the example because I hear a lot of people are like, I want to start a new pizza restaurant. Everybody loves pizza. You can't sell a Domino's pizza to a handcrafted arugula topped pizza person. Those are two different people, or they are at least two different needs. There are some people that buy both, but they are different needs at a different time. And a successful business is always going to meet an unmet market need. If somebody has done it, that doesn't mean that you don't have competition, but there's a way. I mean, just look at Domino's and the bespoke pizza, right? They're both pizza, but they're meeting different needs. And so it's important to think about that. The most important part about the 5 R's is the alignment, that you have things in line where it makes sense. Domino's pizza, I use this example, and I don't think it can be true anymore. I should probably look up at what they actually do. But it seems like they used to have like 2 medium pizzas for $15 or $20 or something ridiculous. You were like, wow, how'd that happen? Right. And I'm sure it's different across the nation, but if you're looking to fill feed a family of 4 or 5, or have, teenage kids over on a Friday night for a sleepover and you want to fill them, $20 for two pizzas is a great idea, right? If what you're looking for, if you're looking for an arugula top farm egg pizza, you're not going to expect to pay that much. So the 5 R's are most importantly that they are aligned and make sense. And the reason why that's also important is it forces me to get outside of myself. It is so easy for me to have this idea of like, I have really great customer service. Really? Because people are complaining. You can step outside and measure it and decide if it's actually working. So that's the 5 R's. Alignment is key. Make sure that it works for you and step outside of yourself in a way that you can measure it. The third one is the tripod of success. I believe that all successful food and beverage businesses lean on the tripod of success, which is the product, the brand, and the financials. You have to have a product that works. One has to have a product that works. A McDonald's cheeseburger does exactly what it is supposed to do, right? It's the same thing across the country. It's always somewhat warm, not really hot. It's quick, it's cheap, it's consistent, right? So that product is something that people can count on and believe in, and those that want it can have it. Not everybody wants that, but at least the product is really clear about what it is and it delivers on what it says it's going to do. The next one is to the food, the product, the brand. A brand is a promise that exists in the mind of a customer. McDonald's has a brand promise for all of us here. We might see it slightly differently. We might be compelled by it. We might be repelled by it, but we all have a notion of what McDonald's is. And a brand doesn't happen by accident. A brand happens. Sometimes it's by accident. I would highly recommend that it is curated rather than an accident. People know about you and people are talking. Who do you want to be and how do you want to present yourself? What do you want people to know? What is that brand promise, right? For me, I felt like there were a bunch of tiny, and we were just talking about this before we started this seminar, right? And I felt like I had a bunch of tiny little questions leading up to the seminar for Mandy. And so I thanked her for her graciousness and her patience with all the tiny little questions I had. And she was like, oh, I do it all the time. It's fine. It's no big deal. So we had two very different expectations. Hers was like, yeah, of course I'll answer like tiny little questions over and over again. Mine was that I needed to not ask a bunch of questions, and we had different expectations. Nothing was wrong with that. It's just the most recent example, right? And so the brand promise for her was fulfilled. Tiny questions, no big deal. She answers them all the time. It's okay. For me, it was a little bit off. And so I kind of reconciled it or tried to make it right by acknowledging her graciousness and support. It's important that we're really clear about what kind of brand promise that we're offering. So A, that we are leading the charge on what people think, and B, about our business. And then that B, we're delivering on that. So the product brand and then financials, right? We've talked about the financial model. I don't care how you build it. If you have a low profit margin, a high profit margin, low cost of goods sold, whatever, but it has to add up to 100. If it's over 100, we have a problem. One of the fanciest restaurants I said in San Francisco has like a 58% food cost. And McDonald's and Burger King have a 12 to 14% food cost. And they both have about a 4%, 5% profit margin. One of them serves 100 meals a night. The other one serves like 100 meals every 5 minutes. I actually don't know the rate of McDonald's meals, but you know what I mean? Like, so the thing is that you can make high margins on a few, you can make low margins on a lot. It can all work out. And they're two totally different things, and that's okay. So there you go. That's the tripod of success. It's really important. You want to customize that concept to fit your business. So these are the keys to your success. Like I said, the problems always equal the solutions. The old model was built on cheap labor, inexpensive labor. It was built on assuming that there was an endless supply of inexpensive labor. And we've had a reckoning of the industry. Like that's just no longer true. It may be less expensive in different parts of the country, in California, in New York. The coasts are really expensive. But there's also a reckoning of like, if you want skilled and if you want fine dining, it doesn't come for free. It's going to cost, something. And now we have to kind of rebuild into it. And now we're in this awkward growth phase of like, who are we? How do we make this work? Because we no longer have that one business model that we're all trying to fit into, which is great, but it's a little bit awkward. I have clients that have they were just named like one of the top 25 restaurants in the country. And they're a fermentation focused business. And when they first wanted to do that, I was like, guys, I'm not sure. And they're like, it's going to work. I'm like, okay, great. So they are in this awkward growth phase. They opened up actually during the pandemic after March 2020. And they have a bottle shop that goes with it, which is super smart. So there's a front corner of the restaurant where you can go and you can go in and buy a bottle. You don't go to the liquor store or the grocery store to buy wine. You can go into this restaurant and be like, hey, I'm just here to pick up a bottle of wine, which is super great. And there are two different numbers. There's the price for buying the bottle of wine and leaving, and there's the price for the bottle of wine and staying here and drinking it. You can get it off the wine list. The server will go pick it up for you. That's super smart, but it's an awkward growth phase because that kind of wasn't happening a whole bunch before the pandemic. And it's kind of like this idea of hot sauce and barbecue sauce or breakfast for the next day, meal packages, right? You can pick them up in your favorite restaurant. I have a breakfast and lunch place that is super busy and really popular. The only issue is they can do a maximum of about 175 to 200 meals a day. Like you just can't move any more people through that size of space for the amount of hours that they're open. We could extend their hours, but then that means we're getting into overtime or we're getting into a second crew. So what do we do in order to expand? Because they're getting almost as busy pre-pandemic, but they're not making as much money because labor has gone up, cost of goods sold have gone up. So what do we do and how do we make that happen? One of the things is, let's do happy hour, right? Let's going to bring somebody in. We're going to bring in a breakfast cook that's going to help cover everybody else's shift breaks. They're 30-minute breaks. And then that way, there's no overtime. We also have cooks that are pitching in and we're like, we have leftover polenta from today's special. And he turns that into deep fried cheesy polenta balls, put some marinara sauce on it, and we have it for happy hour. So we can use food for a secondary product. There's a way that we can find the solution in the problem, but we can also, there's just this awkward growth phase of how is it going to work? But think outside the box. It's okay to think outside the box at this point. We don't have to do it, right? We don't have to do the exact same old. And also remember that it's really so much easier to pivot in midair. So that's the beauty of what's happening right now, is that we can pivot in midair in ways that we haven't before because we were so locked down on how to make things fit into that one and only business model. So like I said several times, the broken model, we went from the broken model to many models. And you can create your own. It doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want at this point. It does matter. You have to be profitable and you have to not work so hard that you're like losing your mind. But you can do anything you want, which is great. And there's a ton of examples out there, right? There are a lot of people out there that are doing a bunch of different stuff. So you can look around and see like, that would work, that wouldn't work. The happy hour for the breakfast and lunch place happens to work because they have a liquor license and it's in a neighborhood where there are almost no other liquor licenses. And so if you want to go have happy hour with food, so you could take kids, but you could also have a drink, is going to work really well. And almost anything that we do there is going to be profit because we're already paying rent. We're already paying the cook to come in. So find a way to make a profit, right? What can we do? And that's also going to come down to menu engineering and stuff like that, which I don't have a bunch of in here about menu engineering, but you always want to have something that is maybe a lost leader as far as food cost or labor cost, but you have something that is like what I call bell ringer, crab cakes and stuff like that, that has a low cost of goods sold or low labor, so that you can make more. You want to balance out your menu with menu engineering in order to make sure that you have enough ways to pivot. So there's this awkward growth phase. Who are we, right? Remember, we're back to this like rope bridge. It's no longer, it's not stable. You can pivot in midair much easier. There's many things, and you can create your own model. Figure out how you want to do it, right? Rather than looking at what you can't do, look at what you do want to do. Or by when you know what you can't, then you can decide how to get there. Same thing as a, lady on Facebook today that was like, people are walking out because they're waiting too long. And I was like, you have your solution right there. Hiring, super important, right? This is a big one. At the moment, so I was just checking slides and timing. 86 begging. I hear this all of the time. People talk about begging, or people are like, it's really hard to hire good people. People aren't showing up for interviews, stuff like that. Those people consistently have problems hiring good people. I have one client that does nothing but complain about how he can't hire good people, and he's not getting good people. Not just because he's complaining, you can feel it. And I have another client in the same block that is like, how can we expand hours? Because I have really great people that are coming from really great places, and I want to keep them, and I don't know how to do that. What do we do? How do I keep these people? Because you want talented people on your team. The first thing that I recommend is stop begging and be great, because you are. People want to be on the winning team. People want to know your job as a leader. My job as a leader is to find a way to say, this is where we're going, and it's going to be super fun. Do you want to be part of it? And you will attract the people that want to be part of your kind of great. There are different kinds of great all over, and you just make sure that you attract the people that want to be on your kind of great, and then offer them that. Who wants to go work for the people that are like, oh, this sucks, it's never going to work, as opposed to, we're going to be the best breakfast and lunch place in town because of these 5 things, and this is how we're going to do it. Or, I mean, that breakfast and lunch place actually has a pastry chef from one of the nicest restaurants in town, and she's now making breakfast pastries. Like, that is not glamorous at all, making cinnamon rolls, but she makes a really amazing cinnamon roll. So, get rid of, just be great. People are going to be attracted to great. Be clear about what you want to do. And let them be a part of it. People want to be part of that winning solution. Show them, be the leader that shows them how they get down that road, that they're going to do something great. And the way that we do that is with clear communication. This is who we are. This is what we represent. This is what we believe in. This is where we're going. We give great service. We serve great food, all kinds of stuff like that. Be really clear about that kind of clear communication. And that comes across in the very beginning, in a job description, in the hiring notice on Craigslist or wherever it might be. Being very clear about what that job description is the first. And so it's super important key to hiring somebody and hiring somebody well. I see so many people come up with this thing, you guys, that they steal job descriptions from other people in the industry, and they use that as a placeholder for what might work and how they're going to hire people. And they're like, yeah, well, I want a really good one. And so I think Mandy's doing a good job at it, therefore I'm going to copy her. It's the same thing with food costs and labor costs. Like, we don't even know, I don't know anything about Mandy. She might have all of her family working for free. And chances are, I don't know anything about her business. And so I kind of steal her job description off Craigslist, change a couple of words. She might have gotten it from somebody else, and it might have come from like 1972 for all we know. Get really clear. This is who we are. This is what we're about. And this is how you can be a part of it. That's super helpful. And knowing that your destination determines your vehicle and your choices, so you know where you're going. Know where you're going first by defining the North Star. So one of my big things is defining the North Star helps us back up and determine where we're going to go and how we're going to get there. So hiring, start really clearly. Job description is key important. Please don't steal somebody else's, because you're better than that. You're not somebody else's, replica. So write your own, know what you're doing. That'll help a whole bunch with the hiring. And then also be really clear. Show what you expect. If you show what you expect, then people are going to rise to the occasion or slough off right away. It's self-selecting, and that's super important. Let them self-select. You don't want to work with them.
Vegan, I have a quick question. So we all know that no hire is better than a bad hire. Do you have some tips, given that Wyoming is very rural, of once you do have, your job description and you clearly communicate where to advertise with a very limited market and labor pool?
Well, so a limited market and a labor pool, one of the biggest things that's going to happen is, right, like I can do some research and find out what's really working there as well. But one of the biggest things, like, I don't know, maybe you guys don't use Craigslist in the same way that other people do. Maybe it's a community bulletin board, where are people gathering? And above all, it's going to be word of mouth. I have a client that has had a restaurant. I have more than food and breakfast and lunch people. This is somebody that's about 150 miles north of San Francisco, out in the boondocks, right? Like, it's an hour and a half from any town from a stoplight. And it's a destination place, not that it's super fancy, but it's a destination place. And coming up with that, I was in there a couple months ago because it's an old friend and a client and a cook that used to work for me and owns a restaurant. So I went through to see them, and it was really amazing to see. I met servers and I'm like, where do you live? Where do you come from? And they're like, Boonville, Philo, Ukiah. And I'm like, that's 45 minutes away. And somebody's like, I live in so-and-so. I'm like, you drive an hour and 15 minutes to get to a restaurant job? And people are like, yeah, she's consistent. She loves us. She feeds us. Life is good. Okay. So it's about team building. It's about word of mouth. It's about being in the place that people want to work at. If I know that I can get, and if it's a rural area, chances are people, lifestyle is more important than money. And so they have 2 or 3 jobs, but they want jobs that are going to make sense for them. People that are willing to be flexible or on call, or I don't know, right? It's about word of mouth and being clear about what you offer so that those people can find it. Even if there's always a small labor pool compared to where it is. Like, Wyoming is going to have a smaller labor pool than San Francisco, but San Francisco has a small labor pool for the amount of restaurants that it has. But it's specifically in a rural area with a small labor pool, I would say word of mouth, team building, hire everybody's sister and brother, right? Something along those lines. There are people, you only need 5 to 10 people, right? Or maybe 20 people. You can build those people over time. And it's tough. I always go to Craigslist, but maybe that's not the place. Maybe it's the church or the community bulletin board or something like that.
Yeah, Craigslist isn't one that we use with any
Okay.
frequency. So.
You're like, yeah, we heard about it. No, yeah, the community hub, the gathering spot is the thing that's really important.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure. Team building, like I said, it starts with the job posting, the interviewing, selection, and offer letter. In an interview, like, I have this cheat sheet. I have clients that come to me all the time. They're like, I don't know what to ask in an interview. And I'm like, well, don't ask for anything personal, in a way that find out who they are, but don't ask anything inappropriate. It's really important. Above all, in an interview, my recommendation is to get people to talk about themselves. I can ask things like, what was the last meal you cooked and who was it for? What was the last gift you gave and who was it for? Why did you do it? What did you do last weekend? What did you do on your days off? Try and frame it in a way that I'm not interviewing you and getting inappropriately close to you, but like, tell me about you. People love to talk about themselves. Who doesn't want to be seen and heard? That's all we want as human beings, right? We want to be seen and heard. Get people to talk about them, because what we're really hiring is the core values of a human being, more so than their skill set. Yes, slicing and dicing and tourneing vegetables and stuff like that is really important, But we all learned how to do that. And we can teach somebody else how to do that if we have the right person. So getting people to talk about it, and then also having an interview where we're talking about, I'm just sharing who I am. Like I lean in and I say, I work with food and beverage business owners because I want them to know the next level of success. I want to give them the food. I want them to have the business tools that they need in order to succeed. So interviewing, change that whole paradigm of like how we have to like sit there with our, things and why did you leave your last job? I mean, they may or may not tell you, but get them to talk and you're going to find out a whole bunch about them. If there are people that are like, yeah, well, my last 7 bosses sucked and they all hated me for no reason and it wasn't fair. It's going to tell you something, right? You're going to be really clear about it. But if you ask for references or you ask standard interview questions, you're going to get standard interview answers. We're looking for the person, not the perfect application. It's the hospitality industry, especially like, Mandy just asked out in a rural area. What do we do? So selection, and then you lean in, you don't give them a standardized letter. You lean in, you would say, I'm really glad to be able to offer you, I want you to come, and put it in an offer letter, even if it's the hospitality industry, put it in an offer email if need be. But even if it's the hospitality industry, and that almost never happens, put some formality to it. It says that you take your business seriously, and it says that you take their job and their lifestyle seriously. And who doesn't want to be part of something great? And if you give me the opportunity to be part of something great, then okay. I mean, my knowledge is cumulative. Literally, my knowledge about what I do is cumulative. But this seminar came from a conversation that I had with Mandy and Nick a couple of weeks ago or a while ago. And one of the things about it is like we were talking about the problems that we see and the solutions that we think need to happen. They gave me the opportunity to do something new. I want to do something new and exciting. And I put a lot of hours into like building this model because they gave me the opportunity to do something that was new and great, right? Like I want to do something that's good, that's helpful. So do the same thing. Give people the opportunity to expand to who they are. Onboarding and training, really, 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 really important. I could spend all day talking about this. Onboarding, I believe, happens with the highest paid person or the highest ranking person in the company. You want to have the CEO, the chef, the owner, whoever it may be, show up and say, welcome on your first day. In the offer letter, you tell them where they can park, when you can see them, and how you can help them. Send them a reminder email. Just start that communication back and forth right away of like, looking forward to seeing you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. That's going to be really helpful. In training, we could go on and on for this, but basically, I do it in 3 steps. I do it, we do it, you do it. And I let you know why it matters for the greater good of the company. I always use that format of why it matters in relation for the greater good of the company in both positive and negative ways. The positive way is, I was at a restaurant the other day, you guys, had this fancy burger. It was called like 3 a.m. in San Miguel. I don't know why it had to be called that, but whatever. That's what it was called because it was a Mexican restaurant, actually. So, and it came out and it had fries, and there's 4 of us at the table, and everybody leans over to grab some of my fries. They were all cold and hard. I hate to be that person, but I leaned in and I was like, you guys, are these cold and hard? Or is it just me? And they're like, yeah, they're bad. So the server came back and I said, hey, I hate to be that person, but these are like cold and hard. Is it? Then I send them back. It took 20 minutes to get a new set of fries, and when they came out, they were cold and hard again. Train the cooks, train the servers. The reason why we have hot fries is because everything else in the menu depended on that. When we walked out, I was like, what'd you guys think of dinner? I was like, your fries were cold. There were 4 other entrees at the table. There were 3 other appetizers. There were 4 other drinks. There were 3 desserts, right? And everybody remembered the cold fries. So train people on like hot food hot, cold food cold. Not rocket science, but we put it down and we say, people remember this one thing. It's really important. You give somebody a reason that's bigger than themselves, so it's not personal. And it's like, I don't know why that Deegan keeps picking on me. When I say, you know what, Mandy, you do great work. I'm really glad you're here. In order for the business to succeed, we all need to be able to count on the fact that you're going to start on time. And when you show up 5 minutes late every day, it kind of erodes at that culture of this is who we are and what it is. And it throws everybody off that they don't count on you. They don't know if you're actually going to show up or not. So I'm going to need you to back up and show up, actually 5 minutes early, put your stuff in the locker, be ready to go when your shift starts, as opposed to, hey, dummy, right? Like it's easy to hear, hey, dummy, if we don't put it in a way that goes for the rest of the company, rest of the organization. So onboarding and training, and then with training, circling back with having performance evaluation at 30 days, 90 days, 6 months, and a year, and then do every year after that. If we don't follow up, it doesn't get done, guaranteed over and over. What gets measured is what gets done. And then leadership. Leadership is about setting the course for greatness. And everything I just talked about is leadership. So the team building, to recap, starts with the job posting, interviewing, selection offer, onboarding, training, and then follow up. If you don't follow up, like I said, what gets measured is what gets done. Increasing and stabilizing sales, defining your true North Star, knowing for the hospitality, which is hospitality and financial. If we know what it is, we can measure against it and we know where we're going. If we just say, I'm going to go do great, what kind of great? Because the best doesn't matter. The best doesn't mean anything, really. It means that I haven't defined it. It's different now, right? Everything is different now. And know your break even now. Just because you knew your break even when you opened the business things have changed. And so your break even has changed. And then how can a new business model serve your business? Like we said, that hot sauce, the wine shop, CSA, soup to go, extending the sales cycle by having the happy hour and a breakfast and lunch place. I mean, who would do that? But after 1:30 in the afternoon, it shuts down. Increasing the top line, this is kind of a recap or getting down to the nitty gritty of the common reasons. The product is not delivering on the brand promise or the customer expectation. French fries, not hot, waiting in line too long, whatever it is. Like if we know the brand promise, then we can deliver on those expectations and figure out the next steps. Or a confusing or non-existent brand is really, what is that promise? If we're not sure what it is, people are not coming, guaranteed. That is 9 times out of 10 the issue when I see restaurants that are not busy. It's often not that they're just bad, it's that people don't know what it is, so they don't know why they're going there. If you guys came to visit me in Oakland, California, and we talked for a little bit, and I'd be like, oh, I'm going to take you here because they have the best pupusas, or I'm going to take you here because they have the best fish tacos. After a conversation, right, I'm going to know where I'm taking you for a particular reason. If we have a confusing or non-existent brand, it's just like food. Who wants that? Not reaching their target market. Good marketing attracts just as much as it repels. So good marketing is going to say, if you're looking for Domino's pizza, this is not the place to be. If you're looking for arugula topped farm fresh egg pizza, this is the place to be. So if you're reaching your target market, like really, even if you're in a rural area and there aren't a lot of people, you only need 100 customers a day or something close to that, right? By knowing your break even, you'll know what it is. And then value perception and quality are not aligned. The restaurant that we just had, that I just talked about, where I had that burger and fries, I've always loved it. It's an amazing restaurant. I'll tell you guys more about it on Thursday, because I want to be careful of time today, but also the perception and the reality didn't match this last time for the first time. And it was like, you want it to. So if it's something that's really expensive, like the value perception is you know that you're going to pay, I don't know, $8 for a latte in the airport, but it's only a $4 latte, but you know it's the airport, you know that it's expensive and that's how things work. Then that's where the value perception and the quality are aligned. You want to make sure they are. And then lack of industry training. So it's frequent for people to be like, I really want to go do this, but I don't know how to, I make really great chocolate chip cookies and all of my friends and family say that I should open a business. It's really important to have industry training. And then increasing bottom line profit. If the top line is okay and the bottom line is not good, then the problem is in between and managing the two. You want to check business models, like, is your food cost? Remember, I talked about the food cost. If you have a really high rent going in, if it sinks you on day 2, then you're kind of screwed. Then it's not going to work. Check the business model. Like, are the overhead, is your overhead and your fixed cost in ways? And are there assumptions that you think, well, my food cost is really high right now, but when I get busier and I can buy wholesale, then my food cost will go down. That's a really common assumption that is not categorically true. Prime cost is super important to me. It's about it's the combination of food, beverage, and labor costs. So raw materials and labor equal prime. It's an old concept that people don't really use much anymore. I think it's very important because it's the thing that you can control the most. And then cost of goods sold. High priced items first will have the biggest impact, and it's typically the most perishable as well, right? If you're selling lobster, caviar, filet mignon, whatever, high priced items are also typically going to be what you can control in the kitchen from a chef's perspective. There's alcohol that's very precious, but those are things that are also going to be perishable. Rings, you want to make sure that everything is getting rung up, that everything is going through the register. I highly recommend reviewing daily sales reports and doing line checks. So line checks is like, are the diced tomatoes diced? Are they cold? Are the steaks portioned to the right amount? And then managing and reducing incremental losses. I know that last slide was a whole bunch after a bunch of stories, but those are the things that I would do. And we need to pause there because of time. We have a few more slides. But we're going to need to pause there because I want to respect time. Does anybody have any questions, or does anybody have the capacity to go over by 5 minutes?
Oh, Leah, there you go. I'll let you answer. Go ahead.
I don't have any questions. I'm appreciating all the information.
Great.
I can stay for 5 more minutes if you have more to share with us.
I do, and I'll make it fast. Mandy, Nick, are you guys okay with that?
Yep, we're good.
Great.
I'll allow it.
Thank you so much, because it's a key stuff that we talked about, and I'd feel bad if we didn't get to it. Inflation and supply chain management. So inflation is happening, right? And we raise prices in order to meet the increased prices of raw cost of goods sold. And it's important that we get there, but we can't just keep raising prices, because there is going to be, at some point, a way that people are going to get tired and frustrated, right? Like, how many more times are we going to have price increases? So what we do is that takes us back to the bridge, the rope bridge that we were talking about earlier. And we just need to have a way that the cost of goods sold fit and make sense and all come together. So price out the menu to accommodate it, which means knowing your costs, like for real, not kind of, sort of. We used to do kind of, sort of. Right now, we need to know what our costs are for real. If you want help setting that up, let me know, because it is so important to me that I'm willing to contribute to that. So price out to accommodate, we know that, well, eggs were expensive a couple months ago. They're kind of coming back down now, but we know that there's this, way of accommodating. So write your menu a little bit higher than it needs to, so that you can accommodate a little bit more fluctuation, and you're not just going up by 25 cents or 50 cents. Or here's what I really see is people throwing on $1 and then hoping that it makes it, and like, well, we'll figure out the cost later. That's super scary to me. Address the elephant in the living room. I know your costs are higher. I know you're paying more. We really appreciate you. Clear communication on the menu. Some people, I don't know what's happening for you guys, but I do know that on the coast, people are adding on 20% service fee. People used to be impossible, and people were like boycotting restaurants for it. And now people just don't like it, but they're willing to pay for it. So there's that. And there's the cook that has to have spinach instead of broccoli. I remember this from my very first job when I was a teenager. Like, a server would come back and say, hey, so we have so-and-so wants spinach instead of broccoli on their filet of sole, and the cook or the chef would be like, oh, blah, 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 blah. Okay, just this one time. That's it. Just this one time. And it's like, if they want spinach instead of broccoli, really, who cares? Because yelling at the server that they can't have spinach instead of broccoli or just this one time. I mean, if there's a reason, how do I say this? Like, if somebody's allergic to corn, they probably shouldn't order the pozole, because I can pull the hominy out, but there's going to be corn like, allergens in there. So there's stuff that, we can't accommodate, but let it go. So the menu mix and the sales mix are really important to me. And there's a thing called menu engineering. It's super important about how you, the highest priced item, the thing that's going to sell the most is just below the highest price item or smack dab in the middle of that category, one below category. So put your crab cakes or your grilled cheese sandwich or your avocado toast or whatever that has a low cost of goods sold that you want or is easy to make, put it right below the highest price item in the middle of the category and watch your sales of that go up. There are many more things that I could say about menu engineering, but like use that kind of thing to your advantage, that so you're not selling your lobster, which has a higher cost of goods sold, therefore a lower profit margin over and over again, kind of detract people and send them this way. So use a menu mix and a sales mix to your advantage. The customer experience is absolutely key. People are starving for hospitality. People are starving for connection. There's an article in the New York Times this morning that says the United States is facing an epidemic of loneliness and what it means for us. I wasn't quite aware of that as much, and it gave me pause to look at it, but people are starving for human connection and hospitality. Give it to them on your terms, right? You don't have to be all things to all people, but you can be really clear about what you are and deliver on that. The best is worthless. I'm going to be the best customer service or the best whatever. It's worthless. Be really clear about what kind of best you are. That's called a unique selling proposition. What is it that I do that nobody else does quite as well as I do, right? Define what that is. And people want people things. I have no idea what that means. And so I'm glad I wrote it, but I'm going to move on from it. I think that means people want to be connected to people, include people in the solution. In order to make ends meet, we're putting on a healthy San Francisco service fee, which is what almost everybody's doing now, because they have to offer medical insurance possibilities to people that have any restaurant that is over 50 people. And then ask yourself about that customer experience. What is your brand to them? Stand outside of your own brand and find out what that brand is to them. The current keys to success are to be flexible and viable in your business, in your financial model, building a like-minded team with a direction, with a shared and seen purpose, who know what you're taking care of your customers is like, and have the tools to do that consistently. Thanks so much for showing up on time. Love the way you're handling your section. Really good to see you. Have a great day. Did you see that couple? You just made them really happy by remembering their order or whatever it was. The new story that we have, the old narrative of like, it's just so hard to make ends meet, doesn't work. The new story is that the North Star that we define tells us where we're going. The tripod of success, which is the product, the brand, and the financial model, is the vehicle that gets us there. And the 5 R's are what keeps us on track and help us course correct. A very brief story, and I'll share with you guys, or an anecdote, is an airplane flying from San Francisco to New York spends 99.7% of its time course correcting. And when I heard that, it blew my mind, because I thought the plane gets up in the air and it goes, okay, New York, go that way. We're constantly changing in order to accommodate the winds and the elevation and stuff like that. 99.7% of its time course correcting. It's not a bad thing. That's how you get to New York. Thank God I'm not a pilot, right? But the 5 R's keep us on track and they help us course correct. It's okay to course correct on a regular basis. There's nothing wrong with it. People are really important and they're the key to our success. Above all, I mean, they were always important, but I'm kind of highlighting it, is the customer experience is also, your staff is your customer, right? They are your ambassadors. You want those people to be part of your company. We hire people that look different, but are overlapping in their shared need to build a stronger bond. It's just like building a patio. We have big rocks, little rocks, sand, and it all comes together to form a stronger bond. We have that responsibility to help people be part of something great and that is bigger than themselves. These keys that we've just talked about, these solutions set the norm for something that is greater than itself. Customers are ambassadors, staff are ambassadors. They're vehicles for increasing and stabilizing sales, which we said on some level is the number one. They're also our marketing department, just like our staff is our marketing department, right? We have those people that are going to attract their cousins and their friends that are going to come work for us. And then look for the highlight opportunity. I always call this an exclamation point opportunity. When those fries were cold, I would have made sure that they were out fast and hot and there was a few extra. Because you could say to their friends, sorry, you guys had to wait. Here's an extra bowl of fries. I mean, what are fries going to cost us? They're very inexpensive for what it's going to cost us in order to win that table to come back, right? And so bring out like a family bowl rather than just like a small handful. Bring out a family bowl and be like, you guys enjoy some fries. Because nobody's going to order fries, but everybody wants to eat fries, right? Or something like that. Or sweet at the end. The inflation and supply chain management are about building into a strong, flexible bridge. Bridges are safe, it's just no longer concrete. And we don't want it to be concrete because we want to be able to pivot. Create time for your work and for yourself. This may be the single most important thing that you can do for your business. Create time for yourself and for your work. And I don't just mean like take time off and go for a hike or go get a mani-pedi, but I also mean like create time for your work. I use something called the time blocking method. It is like the silliest, dumbest thing that ever happened, but it is super important. On Mondays and Wednesdays, I see these kind of clients. On Monday afternoons and Friday mornings, I see those kind of clients. On Wednesdays, I do this task for my business over and over again, and it makes it so that I'm not constantly drinking from the fire hose because it's so easy to do that. So creating time for your work and yourself so that your cup is full, that you can give, be hospitable, build a team of your staff, your customers, and your vendors, right? You need to have a relationship with them to keep it going. That all helps. 37, sorry, 2 minutes over. And that, my friends, is where we were. I have handouts for you if you want them, the 5 R's, the Tripod of Success, or the Brand DNA workbook, and these slides are shareable. That's what I have. Thank you also very much for your patience. Any questions?
I'm not seeing any, but thank you. That was a lot of really good information and we're looking forward to Thursday. So make sure if you aren't registered, please do register for Thursday's webinar with Deegan again. It's going to be the new financial model, how to manage key financial metrics to be profitable and busy. So we're looking forward to that as well. And then Deegan, if you do have handouts, that would be great. And I will make sure that our participants get those as well.
Great, no problem. If anybody has any unmet questions or anything like that, my email is there. Please feel free to reach out and we'll be in touch.
Thank you. Everyone have a wonderful Tuesday.
Great. See you soon. And I'll see you guys on Thursday. Take good care.
Thanks. Bye.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.